What's going on, everyone? It's Excessive coming at you with another video. This video today is just going to go over the update that's just come out, the hotfix that has been applied to Borderlands 3. Just some of the buffs, the debuffs, and the changes they have made to the game that may or may not affect you depending on what gear you use. Chances are it probably will. So we're just going to quickly go over it. As you can see, Maliwan have gotten a couple. The Western guns had increased damage. The ASMD has had an increased damage, and the Cutsmen has had a damage reduction. The TD 10 gallon has had a damage increase. Sickle reload increased. Visor damage increase. Infiniti Pistol has had damage increase. Magnificent damage increased by 25%. Jericho damage increased by 40%. Lucian's call accuracy and handling has been reduced. The Lucian's call, the Lyuda, has had a 30% decrease in its critical hit damage, and that's due to the fact that when you shoot it, the original projectile remains while the other three do split, so you end up with 4 projectiles, so it is doing more damage than anticipated originally. So they have done the 30% critical damage reduced just until they do come up with the fix. I dare say they've got to change some in-game things. Coming down here, you've got Torg, the Tri-Bolt, has had a 25% damage increase. Alchemist with the exact same. Devil's Foursum has had a 13% damage increase. The Flakker now consumes its full magazine when it is fired, and the damage has been reduced by 33%. You notice that it was outperforming all shotguns. It definitely was. It's my favorite gun in the game. Pretty bummed about this, actually. The Laser-Sploder has its rocket interval increased by 0.4, so you'll just have a couple more rockets coming out. Not probably a hell of a lot more noticeable, but you know, if you do use that, that is a benefit. The Maggie has been increased by 35%, which is great. It's been, you know, kind of restored a little bit to what it originally was. The Hellwalker damage has been reduced by 8%. You know, not a huge thing. You might notice it a little bit if you main that gun most of the time. Hyperion, they found that the manufacturer playstyle was, the bonuses were better than the penalties, so they've kind of just, you know, taken a look at some of the more elite Hyperion guns and kind of tried to make them a bit more even. As you know, the longer you fire a Hyperion weapon, the more accurate it gets. So the Conference Call has had a damage increase, which is great because it's just not what it was in number 2. Crossroads accuracy has been reduced, and it now only fires 3 projectiles instead of 4. That is still at the cost of 2 ammunition per shot. The Butcher accuracy has been reduced, and the damage has also been reduced by 25%. The Dull Vanquisher has had its damage increased by 20%. The Skixis, I think it's how you say it, has had an increase of 15%. The Linnoj has had an increase of 20% in damage, and Painter's power damage has been increased by 25%. Atlas had the Ruby's Wrath that has the damage increased by 10%. Probably the biggest nerf, or the biggest change at all in the game, has been to the Hex and the Firestorm. You know, everyone knows the Hex, it's notorious. They've both had their damage reduced by 70%, which is insane, and the Hex now despawns after 3 seconds. It will stop damaging things because it will cease to exist. So they've recalibrated it. Essentially what they're saying is they didn't intend them to be such heavy hitting grenades. It was supposed to be more a slow damage over time that didn't really destroy shields or armor or health quite like they do, is what they're saying. The Hunter Seeker damage has been increased by 25%. Artifacts, they noticed there was a bug when resulting max value being displayed by 183% instead of 113. Therefore they addressed the discrepancy and reduced the max value to 90%. So the damage max roll has been reduced. In the way of, I guess, companions, Iron Bear's health, they're just pretty much saying they're not very viable at the moment. They're still not, if I'm being honest. But they've essentially increased Iron Bear's health by 50. All pets have been increased by 50, and the Digi-Clone has been increased by 100. They've addressed the bug where Salvation were giving lifesteal, bug fixes. Just some psycho stuff here. Rare spawn missions hindering galaxy progress. You know, some bugs here. More bugs, modification against a bug, I guess. You know, chance of a weapon drops. Modification to the Digi-Clone will no longer, you know, spawn into a cage, which would be great. Probably a massive, biggest bug fix. It wasn't even a bug, I dare say they just changed it. This is how it was always intended originally. but shield boosters were modified and now set for auto pickup. I don't think they originally wanted that. I think they did originally mean for you to pick them up, because that's how it was in the last game as well, but you know, I guess due to the uproar of the better shields out there, this just wasn't viable to use, having to pick up your shields all the time. In addition, iridium chests will no longer be listed as red chests. So let's go through a bit of gameplay with some of the guns now and just kind of show you how they go now. Just kind of see, you know, what's worth getting, maybe what's not worth getting. Okay, this is the first gun I'm going to show you post patch. So this is the ASMD, and this is a sniper rifle that you get by the boatload. I always get so many of these, and it's always been pretty crap. Yeah, it's actually quite viable now. It's not too bad of a gun. You could definitely use this now, which is great. You can set the bolts, you can kind of just, you know, get the energy balls going. So it was doing about 1,000 damage prior to this hotfix. It says it has only been increased by 28%, but my damage now says 1900. I'm not sure what go there is. I don't know if they just mucked up the values, but as you can see, it does do pretty decent damage. Bear in mind, this is Mayhem 1. Yeah, I just didn't want to get a whole bunch of modifiers and then kind of be struggling to show you what's actually going on. So it's not too bad now. If you neglected it prior, maybe pick it up now. This is the Cutsmen. I have a shock version. The damage was reduced by 25%. In my experience playing with it prior to the hotfix and playing with it after the hotfix, it is definitely still a viable option. Still great. Still one of the better SMGs in the game, that's for sure, as you can see just there. Next up we have the Infiniti Pistol, and that has had a damage increase of 40%, and I've got to say, I actually think it's pretty great now. I actually might main this as one of my pistols, especially Mayhem 3, you know, everything's a bullet sponge. You got all these buffs coming in that, you know, might just make you have to shoot things forever, so this could be pretty handy now with the damage increase and essentially infinite ammo. So here we have Lucian's Call. I'll just give you some gameplay of this. They have reduced the accuracy and handling. In my experience, I can't really notice it at all. I guess if you're a bit of a subpar, I know that wasn't great, but if you're a bit subpar at aiming, you might notice the clip empties out a lot longer. I'm not too fussed when I do have to reload. You know, you do get 1500 bullets in your clip. If you can't kill something by then, you're probably doing something wrong. So this one I feel has been essentially pretty unaffected by what the changes are. Obviously he is a flame one, so it's not hurting him as much. So we have the Lyuda that had a critical hit debuff. It still does seem to melt enemies pretty quickly, because you don't even really have to hit their critical hit spot to destroy them. As everybody knows, this is a top tier sniper. Nothing has changed. It is still one of the more elite. As you can see, it does still just melt through health, so that has not changed. It might affect you a bit more if you're trying to farm Grave Ward, for that matter. You might notice the critical hit damage does slow how many clips or how long it takes you to kill someone like Grave Ward. This is the doubles Foursum. It got a slight damage increase of 13%. It is bit of an awkward gun to fire. Distance, kind of knowing how far something is from you is important. But as you can see, it doesn't do too bad and get the job done. So it has got a slight buff in damage. Nothing crazy, but yeah. So this is probably the biggest gun buff for me. So the Flakker, as you can see in my clip now, only has one bullet in the clip. It does still take 5 ammo. As you can see, I will reload. 231, just wait, down to 226. So as you can see, it does still consume 5 ammo, but it doesn't have it as a whole of 5. It just has the one shot, and that represents 5. It is still pretty powerful. I would say this was a pretty fair nerf. And that's, you're not probably going to hear a lot of people say that because they like the gun, so they'll just say fuck gearbox, yada yada yada. So it's not too bad. It is pretty even. It still is, like the Lyuda, in the top tier of guns in that class, in the game still even. So it has got 33% reduced damage, and it now only holds the one bullet, kind of stopping you from being able to fire so fast, and that will also decrease the DPS of the gun, obviously. Next up is the Hellwalker that we're going to display. It has had a damage decrease of 8%. I don't really use the Hellwalker. I know maybe Flaks do, so they might notice the damage a bit more, maybe a bit more prevalent than when I use it. 8% is not a hell of a lot, I suppose, considering things got buffed to 20-30% in this game. So I'd say it's not too bad still, but this is essentially how it goes now. So it's not fantastic, not to me at least. I don't really use it. It's not something I ever carry around, but that's how it kind of goes now. 8% was the debuff. So the conference call got a slight buff. Damage has been increased by 15%. Still not great for the build I use. Still don't know if I would use it. That's me personally. You know, I would continue to use the Flakker. Maybe if you have someone else like Flak or someone else where this build just applies better. It has had the 15% buff. Buff. So take that as you will. Maybe it will increase the temptation for you to pick it up. But for me, it is still not good enough to knock off other guns in the same class. So now we've got the Crossroad. It did fire 4 projectiles at the cost of 2 bullets. It now fires 3 projectiles at the cost of 2 bullets. So it has gone down a little bit. This one, for example, if we have a quick look, is doing 345 times 3. So if you multiply the base damage by 3 and divide it by 2, it's doing about 515 damage. So there are guns in the SMG class now that will outclass it bullet for bullet damage. It is still fantastic. The accuracy was also reduced. I do run this. This is my main SMG. I do not fire it from afar. You will not see me shooting at things like that box from here. I do get up close with it. I will use an assault rifle if I'm gonna take someone on from, you know, medium range, long range. So it's still a great gun. You're definitely gonna still keep this one in your inventory. So the next thing that got a debuff was the Butcher. Phenomenal gun. I'd say it's probably second best shotgun behind the Flakker for me. It had a 25% accuracy debuff and damage debuff. Just obviously because of Hyperion, because of that accuracy thing. When you get on a target with this, and you just, you know, you can sit there and just continuously fire as so. As you can see, my ammo was going up and up because of Mo's and the destruction. This does become quite deadly, so I think the debuff was kind of fair. I think if you use something like this to farm Graveward, you may notice the difference. As you can see, it still does great damage, even with the 25% debuff. So definitely still something that's worth having. I wouldn't be passing it out just then. So next up is what I would consider a big surprise, was the Vanquisher. So this actually received a 20% damage increase, taking its base total up to 555. As I said earlier, the Crossroad actually does less damage than some, and this is one of them. Obviously, when it was doing 400 and something times 4 divided by 2, it was doing about 900 per shot on average. Now it's only doing 515. This is a lot better bullet for bullet. As you can see, it just shreds. It's accurate as all hell, whereas the Crossroad is not. This isn't elemental, the one I have isn't, at least. This is a gun that I would have overlooked prior to this hotfix, but now would be inclined to pick up. This is something I might start maining, as it does put out more damage shot for shot than the Crossroad, and it does use less ammo because each shot only consumes 1, whereas the Crossroad has a 45 clip shooting 2 ammo per shot. You only get 25 shots. So this would have a better DPS. I would definitely recommend, if you haven't picked up the Vanquisher, or if you have it sitting in your bank, maybe rotate it into your guns that you use on the regular now and just see how you like it. If you do decide to play online, obviously there's a lot of uproar, people are going to play offline. But if you do start playing online, this is a great weapon to pick up if you have overlooked it in the past. So another weapon that got a good buff is Painter's Power. As you can see, it had a 25% buff and it absolutely melts enemies now. For anyone that doesn't know, essentially the red text reads "no one kills me but me," and the perk is, I guess, when this gun overheats, instead of it overheating, you overheat instead, and you begin to take damage as this gun is in its overheated status. So it's not too bad if you can get like health. If you've got someone like Mo's and you can throw some grenades out to get that healing activated, then essentially you could just kind of go ham on this and you could just destroy people. As you can see, my health is dropping because this gun is in its cooldown phase. yeah, it's an incredible gun now. It's definitely something that I looked previously that I would give a shot now. Next up we have Ruby's Wrath. It got a 10% boost. It was a great rocket launcher already. It probably was my favorite rocket launcher in the game. Having that 10% is great. Rocket launchers aren't something I use still, but this kind of just gives us even more favor with me now because it was my favorite or my most preferred rocket launcher in the game. So, and then you can do the Vortex Grenade, as you can see there, and all the rockets will hone in, as you can see. I'll just try and get a better version than that. Try it one more time. Alright, we'll get some people over here. Nope, try the Vortex. Oh, your Vortex, man! Alright, it's over there. Wow, we're gonna just... Alright, I'll try this again. So for some reason it won't let us... Alright, here's the Vortex Grenade. Everyone that's in it. You can see all the rockets go down. It is Atlas, so it did receive a buff on the last one as well, and then it's now had this one, so it's got a few buffs going for it. So if you weren't using a rocket launcher and you were looking for one, I would definitely consider picking this one up, especially now that it's had the 10% buff in damage. Decent rocket. Okay, one grenade that did get buffed, the only grenade that got buffed, is the Hunter Seeker grenade that you're seeing right in front of you when it wants to home in. Nope. So it had a 10%, oh no, sorry, a 25% grenade damage buff. It is incredibly slow, like it is crazy slow. I don't know if it's fast enough to use. I don't think I'd use it still to this day. It does absolutely tear up when it does hit the enemy, but you will find if you are fighting something that has legs and it can walk, it will not catch the enemy. So maybe if you're fighting someone in a wheelchair, definitely a great grenade to use. Okay, I'm going to show you the two grenades and the things that got hit the hardest out of everything in my opinion. So first we have the Hex. Everyone knows the Hex. The Hex is god tier. Everyone knows this. As you can see, still doing great damage again on Mayhem 1, but I can kill this guy. I can rip his whole shield with about 3 grenades thrown on Mayhem 3. So it still gets the job done, but it's not melting health. Obviously we have shock, so get to health, it might not be as good. So it did take a 70% hit, and those shock things, the shock DOTs only stay out for 3 seconds before they are despawned. So it's a pretty big hit. All the damage has essentially been taken out of that grenade, and you just rely on the DOTs now. So this is the Firestorm. It also got hit with the 70%. And you see, I never really rated this too great in the first place. Maybe the large Firestorm would be better, but yeah, it's not doing good numbers. So the fact this got hit with 70%, I think is pretty rough. It definitely was not in the tier that something like the Hex was. No one even considered that to be in the same class, so I don't know why they hit it so hard. So that's going to do it for just some of the guns that I had on hand that I can show you buffs and the nerfs for. Obviously this may or may not affect your playstyle. If you did enjoy this video, hitting like would be great. If you could subscribe to the channel for more content to come in the future, Borderlands related content. Leave us a comment down below. Did anything you use a lot get nerfed? How do you feel towards Gearbox at the moment? I know a lot of people on Twitter are really annoyed. Are you going to pick up anything that you just saw displayed? Something like the Vanquisher, maybe Ruby's Wrath, something that got a decent buff that has now maybe become viable in that class of weapons. Anyway, yeah, I'm happy to talk in the comments down below. Please leave a comment, and I will see you next time. Thank you for watching.